It's about learning how to really manage your people and how what you do as a leader really plays out and the chain reaction that happens from that one little thing.
Welcome to a new season of Leadership Live podcast, where talented people become extraordinary leaders. I'm Daphne Horowitz, and I'm here to help you cut through the noise and talk about real leadership issues. Down to earth, solid, caring, and confident leadership. No theory, no pie in the sky, no frills or fluff. Because this is what the world needs most right now. For you to lead with confidence, clarity, and impact so that you can build a business that builds people, grows profit, and makes a difference. We hear and talk a lot about what motivates and inspires a team, but do we really know what we're doing that demotivates them? Today's guest is Julie Bartkus, a leading authority on workplace transformation. She's embarked on a 20-year-long hands-on research interviewing employees at all levels in organizations to identify over 30 staff demotivators that drain team members of their motivation. And she's developed the DRIVE method to help leaders attract the right staff to support their vision. Now, this is so important because if we know exactly what we're doing that is demotivating our team, it's as important as doing the right things to make sure that they are motivated and performing. And this is what we spoke about in this conversation today. I'm really excited because we covered so many gems that you can take away and begin creating changes in your own leadership behaviors so that you can motivate your team and get the business results that you want. So Julie shared with us her first experience of becoming a manager and how she dealt with her very first leadership challenge. She then shares some key motivators that require us to look at our own behaviors and leaders. And it's really about not always having to prove ourselves, being willing to ask questions, to ask for help. And we also spoke about how important it is to connect to a strong why, a strong sense of purpose and vision, and also to find your joy as a leader. So there's lots of really practical tips to take away about what you can do to make sure that you create the kind of work environment that you want to create, where people are motivated and happy to come to work and they're not being held back by the demotivators that we speak about. So make sure to have your paper and pen ready and take some notes because there's some really great tips here. And as always, for great leadership resources and information, please head on to my website at daphnehorovitz.com and grab yourself a copy of my book, Weekly Habits for Extraordinary Leaders, available on Amazon today. And if you want to be a confident and inspiring CEO with a winning, motivated team rallied behind you, then go check out our brand new program called the CEO Habits Bootcamp. And that's on daphnehorovitz.com/CEO Bootcamp. Go there and check it out for more information. In the meantime, just sit back, relax, or maybe not relax, actually make notes as you listen to this conversation with Julie Bartkus. So welcome to Julie Bartkus, who we have on our show today. I'm really excited to host you today. I know you have a lot of gems to share with us about how to lead a team and what motivates teams and what demotivates them. But we are going to dig into that story that you have that is so wonderful about your first leadership experience and what that meant. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. Yeah, I realized the importance of leadership and really trying to figure things out when I was working in retail. And I was loving my job. I worked at a clothing store called ID. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, ID.
I don't know it.
It was basically a time where there was matching, where everything matched. It was like there's matching.
I do remember that time.
I remember that time when it's like if you had a pink top, you had pink pants to go with it, and pink shoes and pink socks. It's like everything matched.
Exactly. And a pink hairband.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was, the day and age of everything matched. And I was just really loving my job. And one day I had a manager who approached me and she said, Julie, you're doing a really great job. How would you like to do more of what you love, but now through other people? And I thought about it for a minute, and there was a little bit of a raise involved. So that intrigued me. And I really loved what I was doing. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to have now a team of people, and I'm going to get to be a manager in this retail store. So I pretty quickly accepted the position. And then I was in for a little bit of a surprise because I really thought I was going to get to do more of what I loved, but through other people. But what I didn't realize is that my whole job was just going to become inspiring these other people to do a good job, the job that I was doing, the job that I loved.
Yeah.
So I remember
I pause you there for a moment, because I think that's such an important lesson there, is that as we get promoted or we climb the ranks in an organization, we think it will free us up to do more of what we love. But I often hear, at least from people that I work with, is that now they have to make time for this people management thing, which they don't understand and they don't love. And it actually takes them away from doing the work that they really love to do.
It becomes such a mental challenge too. And a lot of people toggle between like, do I stay in this role or do I go back to what I was doing? Because when I was doing what I was doing, I really loved it. But now I'm trying to manage other people. And I remember on one of my first days in my leadership position, I had an employee, and her name was Shannon. And she came in, she punched the clock. And I remember her walking over towards the clothing rack, and she began to straighten out those clothes. And then she looked over at me, like kind of like over her shoulder. And she said, Julie, she's like, I'm hungry. I think I want to go get something to eat. And I'm like, okay, employee punched the clock, straightened clothes for about 5 minutes. Now she's hungry, wants to go get something to eat. What do I say?
Yeah.
And I didn't know. So I thought about it for probably like 60 seconds. And then in my young leadership mind, I said, well, if you're hungry after you punch in, maybe you ought to think about going to work at one of those places. And I don't know if what I said was right or if what I said was wrong, but I didn't know. And I had a regional manager who came in the next day and greeted me and said, Julie, I heard the conversation that you had with Shannon. I'm like, oh, man. So here was this employee.
So that was wrong, not the right answer.
I was managing, right? But then somehow the manager over my head, several steps up, heard the story too. So the employee didn't come back to me and say, oh, well, that doesn't really work for me, or explain the situation. Instead, she went over my head. And then I was left not only with a conflict with her, but also with my regional manager. And I learned through this that when you step, at least years ago, into a leadership role, you don't get a manual. It's kind of like parenting. You don't get a manual on how to raise your child. And even if there is a manual out there, it's like, okay, but here's a specific situation that I need help with.
And it doesn't follow any of the rules, right? Because there is no manual, there are no rules, and you really have to assess the situation at every point, and every person is different, every situation is different. It's not a one size fits all.
You're so right. And it's trying to figure out, and it's trying to piece the puzzle together to say, all right, did I handle this correctly? How do I put my pride and my ego, my needing to be right aside to really?
I suppose it's a combination of you are now the leader. You need to take responsibility. You see an employee doing something that is not exactly right, and so you need to call it, but with no experience, how do you call it in the right way? And all of this must have been going through your head, I can just imagine, in that moment.
Absolutely. And I know lots of people are caught up in that situation. And when you go into a leadership position, it's like, all right, here's where you can now eat your lunch, and here's where you could hang your coat. But it's not like, here's the common situations that are going to unfold, and here's how you can handle those things so you still feel good at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, many leaders leave just scratching their heads going, did I handle that one good? Yeah. Will they come back tomorrow? Yeah. Will the situation, be better
There's no one really to ask. Unless you've got a mentor or a leader that you can actually go and say, hold on a sec, this situation happened. Right. Did I handle it okay? What should I do? But I actually want to pause for a moment again and just say, reflecting back, what would you have done differently? Because I'm just imagining perhaps some of our listeners are going, hold on a sec, but what was wrong with that response? I can imagine there are plenty of people who think that. So what would you have done differently now with the knowledge and experience that you have?
And it's funny, as often as I share the story on platform and stages where I speak, I've never really thought about, well, what would you do differently? So now, in what I know about leadership, I probably would have let, especially being new in my leadership role, I probably would have let the employee go, do her thing. And then I would have consulted with the upper management to say, all right, this is what happened. I'm not sure if I did it right. What do I do now? So I probably would have consulted with somebody a little bit or asked a question.
I love that. I actually love that, because I think this is something that we don't do, and leaders often don't do. It's just stop for a moment and ask a question, ask for help, ask for guidance. We think we need to have the answers, and especially recently promoted. Oh my gosh, I'm promoted because I'm really good at what I do. So I obviously need to know what to do here, but I don't. So who do I turn to? And asking for help is such a critical skill. I really believe that. That's a gem, I think, that we can already take away from this conversation in terms of just pause for a moment. If something is niggling at you and you're not sure how to approach it, ask. Just find someone you can ask.
Yeah, such an important point to reflect upon, because like you said, you get promoted and you're on cloud 9, and then you've got pride and you got ego running the show. Yeah. And they're saying you were promoted because you do a good job, so you better do a good job. So a lot of times we have leaders who won't ask because they're like, I should know. Exactly. I should know how to do this. I should be able to figure it out. That's why they put me in this position. And we don't put the pride and ego aside to say, you know what, I need to be vulnerable. I need to be transparent, which are two amazing leadership skills and qualities. I need to be transparent just to ask somebody, how do you deal with this?
Yeah.
What's the most constructive way I can handle this? And you might be surprised, they may not know either, but at least then you are being unified with your leadership team to say, all right, here's the approach we're going to take when this happens.
And you're having a conversation. So you're having a conversation about a situation that's arisen and really trying to brainstorm together to find solutions. And that is really the best way to do it. I think it shows leadership when you bring people in by asking the questions, having the conversations, not always knowing all the answers. And I think an element of a recently promoted situation, whether it's recently promoted CEO or a leader at any level, is that it comes with maybe a responsibility, or you feel that there's a need to prove yourself. You've been given this fantastic opportunity and you want to prove that you're up for the job. And that's when we can make a lot of blunders. And the other side of that is when we make a mistake, we can actually also say, sorry, just stop for a moment, apologize and say, what have I learned and how would I do it differently? And then have that conversation as well.
Absolutely. And it becomes a lot of time in the workplace, such a power struggle. It's me against Shannon, me against the employee who wants to now go get something to eat. And it becomes a right versus wrong kind of thing. Like, well, no, you just punched in, you should stay, you should work. But unfortunately, that's not the way that people work, especially when it comes to interpersonal relationships, and especially when it comes to getting the best from your employees. It can't become I'm right, you're wrong, do what you need to do or go somewhere else.
Exactly. And that pure work focus, because, being new in your job, you didn't maybe know this person's situation. I think this could apply to anyone. If you don't know the person's situation, I always say there's a difference between a situational issue that has arisen and a pattern of behavior.
Oh, yes.
So when a person has just clocked in and wants to go eat, it could be that all of a sudden she felt weak and she really needed to get something to eat, or that she's dealing with, who knows, diabetes, or what. It could be so many reasons that she needed to eat in that moment that we just don't know about. But then when something becomes a pattern, I clock in and I go and eat, that's a whole different matter. And and I suppose that's when you just start asking questions, because there still could be a very valid reason. So ask questions, get curious, understand what's going on, see how you want to handle it from a leadership and a culture point of view, and then, take the steps that you want to take. You don't always have to jump in and do something about it.
Absolutely. And that's a writer downer right there in itself, is to really understand, is this a repeating pattern or is it a one-time thing? Exactly. And me being new with this employee, I didn't know. And so, that's probably what I would have looked back and go, okay, let me figure out, is this a pattern or is it just a one-time thing? So leadership too becomes a way of thinking, not necessarily a set of here's what's right, here's what's wrong, but it's a way of thinking so that you can manage your people to be in their best, to be their best, to do their best so that they could shine. Yeah. But it's really hard sometimes in the moment to figure that out because there's a lot of emotional stuff that's going through our minds in terms of how we handle the situation.
Exactly. It's so true. It's so true. And it's about really taking the time and putting in the energy to understand who you're working with and what kind of an environment you want to create. And I think that does bring us to the point of that's not always in the sweet spot of what you want to do or what you love to do from a leadership point of view. You might be in a leadership position, but maybe you still love to do the actual work that you've come from, and that's also a struggle that I see a lot with people. So I don't know if you have a comment on that as well.
Well, it's really important to evaluate if you can do the work that you love through other people. And I think once you get skilled with your leadership, you definitely can. You definitely can see your vision for, whether it was matching all those different outfits, coming to life. You could see that. But if you're really removed from what your employees are accomplishing, what they're celebrating, what they're doing, then you're going to become removed from the real work that you love. So it is possible. So keep that in mind. And it's also possible for transformation to happen too with those employees.
Exactly. And what you're saying there is that when you realize that you can do what you love through other people, you're actually facilitating a much grander vision, a way of giving voice and expression to what you love on a bigger scale, because you can't do everything yourself. So realizing and understanding that, and really shifting your mindset to know that your team is helping you to achieve something on a bigger scale, on a grander scale, as long as it's something that means something to you and the people who are working with you, then it really can create magic.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we miss that piece. We think it's all or nothing. We think like, oh, well, wait a second. I was loving the work that I was doing. Now I'm doing this. Don't love it so much. Need to retreat. But if you could really study and make it your fascination to get inside of your employees' minds, it just becomes a whole thrill in itself. And one of the things that I love looking at, especially with employees, is how are they thinking? And if you could figure out how your team thinks, there's magic in that, because that's going to reveal those patterns to you. That's going to reveal where their strengths are, their gifts are. And it's going to really help you to know how to navigate things as a manager, is to really see, how are these people thinking? And if I'm gone for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour or 2 days, will they think in the way that's going to align with the vision that we want to accomplish?
I'm interrupting this episode to share an absolutely wonderful free leadership toolkit I've created, and I want you to go and get it. So if you're a CEO and you're great at what you do, but you're frustrated because you're constantly chasing deliverables or putting out fires, and you know you can be better by building leadership habits to become a confident, inspiring CEO with a top-performing team, then go and grab your free leadership toolkit and training at daphnahorovitz.com/leadership toolkit. It's just a matter of creating leadership habits that serve you, your business, and your team to drive the results you want to see. I will show you how in this free training. So go and get it now at daphnahorovitz.com/leadership toolkit. And if you're tired of working those crazy hours, shouldering responsibility for all the things, with your team just not stepping up enough, here's what you need: the CEO Habits Bootcamp. If you're ready to apply to join the CEO Bootcamp, head on to daphnahorovitz.com/CEO Bootcamp. I can't wait to see what that will do for your leadership and your business results. And remember, once you make it a habit, it doesn't take that much time. Now, back to the show. And that actually is a nice segue into the work that you've done around the 30 things that you have found demotivate teams. And I think that's really important, because when you speak about how do your teams think, you really want to be able to tap into the things that you can do in order to motivate them, because you know that when you have a team that's working in their area of passion, that are happy to come to work, everybody's life will be a whole lot better, and the results you achieve are also way better, because people want to go the extra mile when they are feeling motivated, cared for, part of something important. So tell us about that, the work that you did around it, how you got into the 30 demotivators, because I suppose those are the things to avoid. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Well, I started this work over 20 years ago in really helping organizations make a transformation happen. And I've held a lot of positions. I was in corporate for 8 years, had a lot of different supervisors, and there was constant right sizing, downsizing, outsourcing, execution style firings. There was a lot that was going on, and then I was also in retail, also worked a variety of childcare positions in the childcare industry. But one thing I discovered is that there are things that demotivate people. So if you take an employee, they interview for a new job. They're so excited. They're like telling all their friends and families, hey, guess where I'm going to be working? And I'm so excited. And these days they might even be posting on social media. And then they come into your workplace and it's like a day later, a week later, a month later, a year later. And it's like, wait a second, where's that motivated employee who started on day one? And you think that they changed on you. But what we really have to look at in the workplace, which is what I've been studying for over 20 years, is, well, what's demotivating? So when I first started this work, I would get calls from all over the world, people saying, Julie, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to do to have a motivated team? And the important question that we really had to look back and ask, or take a step back and ask, is, well, what's demotivating your team?
So what maybe I need to stop doing. That question is, what do I need to stop doing?
Stop doing, right. So instead of looking at, well, what do I need to do? Well, let's look at what's demotivating these people and let's pull back our energy on what we need to stop doing. So that's really where, a big part of the work came in, was interviewing every single level of employee. And I would go into organizations. If it was a childcare program, I'd be meeting with the cook, the bus driver, all the way up to the owners, asking them what motivates you in the workplace, what drains your motivation. And I started noticing trends with every organization that I would speak to. Is that, oh, that's demotivating you as well. And that there were just these things that were very common that are easy to fix. But if you're in the leadership role, you might not even know they're going on. And if you do know they're going on, you don't have the opportunity to sit back, see the big picture, and understand how they're impacting your entire team.
So can you give us an example of one or two of these demotivators? What did you find that was common across a few corporations or businesses that were real demotivators?
Yeah, so one of the things that is, there's lots. So many things come to my mind. I'm like, and it's just like when you ask that question, like 20 of them like popped.
So many. There's so many. Which one? But I'm imagining there's a few really simple things that we go, oh yeah, that's kind of obvious, but we can do something about that,
Yeah. And I will reveal some of them to you, but what I want you to also think about is the behaviors that you're seeing in the workplace are symptomatic of other things going on. So those are not the things that we necessarily need to treat in themselves. So for example, if you have gossip, negativity, drama, complaining, blaming, whatever some of those destructive patterns are that are plaguing your organization, identify those things and then take a step back and go, okay, Julie said these are symptoms. These are symptoms. Now, the real question is, what are we doing as a leadership team that's causing these things? And that is one of the toughest pills to swallow, because a staff demotivator are the things that are modeled from the top of your organization downward by leadership that's causing a chain reaction of destructive events to unfold. So if people come to me and say, Julie, we have gossip, fix my staff, that's a hard task. But if somebody says, Julie, we have gossip, we have negativity, and I understand and take responsibility that there's things that we're doing from the top down, but I really need help identifying those things. Can you help us? That's when we can have a winning formula. And that's when we could see a fast transformation happen in workplaces, is when we have leaders who are at that point to say, yes, okay, I realize, and I accept that it's me here. What do we need to be doing differently?
So it's actually, you're saying it's the leaders who need to understand that they are the ones who hold the culture first and foremost, and then you look at their behaviors, which I love because I work a lot with leaders and their behaviors and habits. So this is what I talk about. But give us an example. Can you give us an example of something that we could just get our teeth into?
I've teased enough.
Yes, you've teased a lot.
So let's look at a simple example. One could be lack of follow through.
Okay.
So if a leader says, yes, I'll do this. And as a leader, you're probably walking amongst your team, making lots of commitments and promises. Yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll follow up with that. Yep. Got it. And then you get to the end of your day and you go, what the heck did I commit to? And you don't remember every commitment and promise that you made. And that's just one example. But then in your team member's mind, when they came up to you and they said, I'd really like this report, or I really need this, or I really would love to see this. And you go, okay, that's really great. I'll make a note of that. And then it's never mentioned again. They start to think that their feedback doesn't make a difference. And then when you decide to do an employee survey and nobody gives you feedback, you scratch your head wondering like, well, why is nobody saying anything? Or why is there gossip? Why don't people bring this to my attention? So really look at the commitments and promises that you're making on a daily basis, or the items that you're saying, yep, I'll do that. I'll take care of that. And start pulling your energy back from making all those commitments and promises. And you could simply have a list where people can write things down, or you write the commitments and promises that you're making down. And then you say, I will take this into consideration. And you bring those things back up at a staff meeting or through a memo or a one-on-one meeting. But there's some way that you circle back to those items, to those commitments or promises that you've made. And that's a big one. And one of the most important things to point out too with these staff demotivators is that your staff is modeling your behaviors, and they will take one negative thing that you do and they will like model it and think it's the protocol, and you'll see it being modeled like 150%. Like, well, wait a second, I was late to that staff meeting once and now everybody's late. Yeah. But they take the negative thing and it's exaggerated, where it takes a lot more.
And it comes with a different kind of intention. So I'm even thinking about your example of lack of follow through, which I think is an excellent example. And I often see that happening where there is just so much on the leader's plate. And as you say, it could be a matter of busyness. It could be a matter of maybe just not being completely present in that moment, just saying yes, or just taking on too much because you really believe in it. But there's no intention to not follow through. And yet it can filter down into a culture of not really following through, or not feeling like you're heard or actually being listened to. And that can be way more destructive than the original behavior, which stems from something that could be quite innocent at the outset.
And I encourage everybody who's listening just to soak that in. How powerful is that, to think that you are really empowered to make a huge workplace transformation happen. And it's like Daphne's saying, it might not be a huge thing that you're doing. It might be something small that you need to change, but that small thing that you're doing has this huge destructive impact on your team. So if we could identify, hey, what are the top things that I'm doing, the top 10 demotivators, and I could pull my energy back from those and not do those anymore, you can make a transformation happen pretty quick, which is powerful, because it's not about, I'm going to go back and fire everybody and we're going to start all over and hopefully, HR brings me the right people. It's not about that. It's about learning how to really manage your people and how what you do as a leader really plays out, and the chain reaction that happens from that one little thing.
Yeah. I love that. So, Julie, would you say that in the themes that you've picked up, and I know that there is the number that we've spoken about, which is 30, would you say that those are a lot of things that stem from the leader themselves, or are there things that are demotivators that are just present in the system?
Well, there could be things that are present in the system. So you mean from like the higher up, the corporate structure?
Or just the environment. Could it be physical, like a great demotivator? I don't know. I'm just thinking on the spot. A great demotivator is when, I know that's actually something that happened, that in a company that I was coaching in, they used to have a whole lot of variety of teas and coffees and sugar and sweetener and everything. And then they went through a cost-cutting exercise, and the first thing they decided to cut costs on was the different herbal teas that they were, just leaving available to people. And then all of a sudden, filter coffee became only for the people who have a key to the kitchen. And to me, that's a huge demotivator, which is something that is really simple to fix and not that costly, in the larger picture, and something that really influences people's feelings. So it might not be a particular behavior, but something in the system that, you could change that, and it's not going to cost you a lot of money, and it's going to give you a lot of, a lot of brownie points with your people.
Benefits. Yeah. That's true. And in that situation, I would really be looking at, well, what is it? And this is, and this is what I think about when I come in and I work with organizations, is what is it that we could get employees to connect to that's not a benefit that would be taken away? Because in corporate, it was like always a different benefit was being taken away. People were, and this is really important to understand too, is that your people mentally check out before they physically check out. So a lot of times as a leader, you could be carrying dead weight around for, a year, 2 years, 30 years. I've had leaders calling me saying, all right, this one employee is sticking around and I don't know what to do, but give them something else to connect with besides the benefits, besides the monetary items that can be pulled away in a second. So for example, if they're incredibly connected to your leadership style, if they're incredibly connected to the vision, if they're asked how their job really helps make the vision come to life, we've got to be seeking ways to emotionally connect employees. And this is a huge, huge golden nugget, but we have to be seeking ways to emotionally connect employees to the work they're doing. And that's what I would make is the priority. So yes, things are going to be taken away, like your coffee, your tea, your Keurig machines. Some of the niceties can go, but you could still have a motivated team.
That's not what it's based on. And I suppose it's also how it's done. And for me, that always does come back to leadership behaviors, If there is a cost-cutting exercise, and the first people who are taking a cut in salary, and we really have seen that over the last year and a half of really challenging times, if the first people that are cutting their salaries are the leadership team, the CEO and his direct reports, then you're setting an example for trying to keep the rest of the employees at a level that they're used to, and not putting a hardship on them and taking the knock yourself. That makes a huge difference to how people actually view things, how they connect to you and your company, and how they feel cared for. So I think those are really important things to look at. And it does come back to your behavior as a leader, your reason for doing certain things, and how you put that across to the people that work for you.
Yeah, one of my fascinations is studying teams, even volunteer teams. I would always think when I was first doing this work, well, why do some people come together not being paid at all and go all out on accomplishing a certain task? Or saving a dog. I mean, this always fascinated me too, is that you'd have teams of people who will form a chain across the country to rescue a dog. And they will do this after hours. They will do this, in spite of them having food, and why do they do that? And it always comes back to the reason that they are just so connected to the vision, that they see this dog having a happy home. They see this dog escaping a life of abuse. They see this dog providing hours of fun and love to a family. So they have this vision in their mind, and it might even be different visions for different people along the chain. But dog rescue is fascinating. And I've rescued a couple of dogs myself. And my last one came from West Virginia. His name was originally Curly, brothers Mo, Larry, and Curly. I renamed him Teddy, but he was an amazing dog. And just to think that he was going to be killed the next day. But these people came together on this vision to form this chain to get Mo, Larry, and Curly out of West Virginia, out of the kill shelter, over here. I think I was in Massachusetts at the time, so that they could be adopted. They were already finding homes for them even before they arrived. And teams fascinate me. Teams are amazing, but look at teams where they don't get paid a dime. Look at teams where they go above and beyond, and these people in these teams are working 40 hours or more a week on their normal job. And then they come and they volunteer. And it's the connection that they feel to the vision. And that is so critically important.
Yeah, I would say that there's a real sense of purpose in terms of why they're doing it. And that's a huge part of building the culture around a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning. Why is it that people wake up every morning and go to work in a place where they don't feel a sense of connection? Then you have a very transactional situation. But if you can really say, why do you come into work? And there's a bigger purpose and there's a bigger vision and mission, and they can connect it, and every person doing their role within the business can connect to the bigger purpose, mission, and vision, then you really have people wanting to be there and feeling fulfilled. And then, of course, as a consequence, just going the extra mile, putting in the extra hours and putting in the extra effort. So
absolutely. And that's a great starting point, is to ask your people, why did you come to work today?
Yeah.
And just see what they have to say. And depending upon your relationship, they may give you some kind of weird answer, or they may give you a segment of the truth. But if you could really get to the why and help people develop the why. And when I was in corporate, I developed my own why. And if we talk about demotivators, one of the demotivators is lack of vision. When a leader does not have a vision, and too often our day becomes rotated around the daily stress unfolding as opposed to a bigger vision that we can bring to life.
Absolutely. That is so true. And that is the leader's role, is to really bring that vision to life and to help people connect their particular role, whatever it is that they're doing, to that bigger vision, because that makes all the difference. Absolutely. How you come to work and how you apply yourself at work and how you build connections. It really is into that. So,
because think about how stressful it is to think about, how's my leader going to react today? What's this employee going to do? Who's going to say what about who? And your day just becomes around all of these destructive things that are going to unfold, as opposed to the greater picture of what can come into fruition. But
what I'm part of helping to create here.
Yes. But it takes a leader standing in that energy to say, wow, look at you. You came in today, and what an amazing part of the vision you are. Let me tell you about it.
And because of you, this is what's going to happen in the business, or this is what's going to happen in the world, because everybody has an impact.
Powerful.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Julie. I think as we come to the end of our time, I'd love to ask, what is one nugget that you want to leave our listeners with? So whether it's a nugget or a message, what is the thing that you'd like to say?
So this is coming to my mind for your listeners, is find the joy. The word joy is coming up for some reason. It's like pounding in my head, but find the joy in the work that you're doing. And if you're a leader in a multi-leadership organization where there's several leaders above you or whatever, and you're like, well, nobody else is setting this vision, how do I do it? I encourage you to find it for yourself. Think about, why do I do what I do? What difference does it make? Why does it matter? Those are three powerful questions. It's my why, what, why formula. But think about those things, and the end result that you should get to is you doing a dance of joy, saying, yeah, wow, I make a difference.
I had to do that. So just repeat them. Why do I do what I do?
Why do I do what I do? What difference does it make? And why does it matter?
Those are amazing questions. Really, if everybody had to just think about that for a minute. And I love the whole idea of asking questions. So ask yourself that, and ask your team that. Ask the people that you report to, ask those questions, because that's what builds a community around what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So critically important, all of those points that you made. But I was in that position in corporate America, forgot my why. I was a financial manager. We were balancing budgets to the exact penny at midnight. And I'm like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And I just got out a big white piece of paper, made a little flip chart for myself. And I really came down to the vision of, because I'm in this role, I'm connecting 911 calls. This is the short vision here, since we're the short story, since we're wrapping up. But I connect 911 calls. Those 911 calls, they save lives. And that's what I'm going to look at myself as going forward, is I am the person who's helping connect these calls so that lives are being saved. Because it wasn't very motivating to me to be balancing budgets to the exact penny. It just wasn't. But when I thought about the bigger picture and the bigger vision for our company, I was in a telecommunications company at the time, where I discovered this for myself. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm saving lives. I like this because I'm a real people person and I love to help people. So For me, that did it.
That's an awesome mission and a big why, for sure. So Julie, if anybody wants to get hold of you, we'll put all those details in the show notes as well, but maybe just say how can people get hold of you? Where can we find you?
Sure. So come on over to juliebartkus.com, JulieBart, as in Tom, KUS. And there is a free Getting Unstuck consultation form if the message that I'm sharing with you today is speaking with you and you'd like to just hop on the phone with me for a little bit and have a conversation. There's currently an offer on the site where you can grab a free Getting Unstuck consultation. And you can also find me on Facebook, Julie Bartkus.
Yay. Well, that's really, I've had a wonderful conversation with you today. There are a lot of gems that came out. So I think this is one to actually go back and make some notes and make sure that you reflect on who you are as a leader. What kind of an environment are you creating in your business, and asking yourself those important questions that really connect you to a sense of purpose and mission and vision, and just change the whole culture and environment that you're creating for your people as well.
And change your life, your own life in the process, because you matter, and what you want in your life matters.
Yes, and find the joy. For me, joy.
Find the joy. Woo.
Huge theme. Yes, exactly. Thanks, Julie. This wraps up another episode of Leadership Live. Thank you for joining us today. And now let's continue the conversation. Do you have any questions, comments, or suggestions? Connect with me on LinkedIn or head on to my website at daphnahorovitz.com, where you can download a free sample of my new book, Weekly Habits for Extraordinary Leaders. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with a friend so that I can continue to reach and support leaders just like you. So tune in next week to Leadership Live, where talented people become extraordinary leaders.